Hey, what's up? It's your girl Neek, and you're tuned in to Neek at Night. And tonight we're going to be talking about this lawsuit that Don Richard of Danity Kane filed against Diddy. Now, as you guys know, Don Richard, she got her claim to fame on Making the Band, and it was, I want to say, season 2 of the show. Now, I believe it first started out with Diddy making the band, and then he decided to make Danity Kane, which was an all-girls group. And it was a show that many of us grew up watching, many of us tuned in on, and it was one of the reality shows that was just something that was pretty much part of the culture. Now, the group split, and then Diddy decided to make a group of his own with Don Richard and a woman by the name of Kalina, and they had their own group as well. Now, fast forward to 2024, Don Richard, who has publicly praised Diddy, as well as said stuff ain't sweet over the years, is now suing him in a lawsuit that was filed and dropped today. Well, I don't know if it was filed today, but we found out about it today. And I'm going to go over it with you guys in this stream. Now, I'm going to pull up a interview that she did with Sway in the Morning, and I'm just going to play an excerpt of her basically speaking about Diddy and her situation with him and explaining what it was like to, you know, be around him. She starts off by saying how he was pretty much like difficult, and I'm going to show a couple of things before we get into reading this lawsuit. So let me pull that up. I'm just going to play the audio, but it was an interview that she did 12 years ago. And they pretty much talk about, no music. All right, they pretty much talk about Diddy's reputation of being difficult and things like that. So let's roll it.
Be difficult.
Well, let me ask you a question.
To be known for being what's crazy is when you know Puff's reputation, I don't think you ever thought of him to be anything else. If it was someone that wasn't known for being a hard ass, then maybe I would have understood, but he was definitely someone that had a reputation to be difficult.
Well, let me ask you a question. If I'm gonna keep probably cutting you off, I don't mean to be rude.
Totally, no.
All right, but work with me. I've seen Puff spaz out on people to the point where my heart jumped, like, you know, and I'm a grown ass man. It was like, damn, I'm glad I'm not on the other end of that.
All right, so that's Sway talking, and he's basically about to ask Don a question. But as you heard, he talks about how Puff has spazzed out to the point where he himself was like, whoa, like, oh my God, I can't believe he's spazzing out and he going that bad on somebody. And this basically backs up a lot of the things that we have been seeing filed in these lawsuits, where people are finally fed up and they are speaking their truth within these lawsuits. Now, some of the lawsuits, I don't know if it's just a money grab for some and people are clout chasing, but some of them I believe have merit because there has been documentation over the years that kind of supports some of these allegations, and we have been getting hints that stuff wasn't all sweet. So when certain members speak about things, you kind of are inclined to believe some of the things that they are saying. So I'm going to continue to play this. Let me back it up just a little bit, and then we'll go into some more.
I've seen Puff spaz out on people to the point where my heart jumped, like, you know, and I'm a grown ass man. It was like, damn, I'm glad I'm not on the other end of that. What's the worst time you ever seen him spaz out?
Yo, I'm about to air out our dirty laundry.
Okay.
So, yo, we were coming to rehearsal in New York. We were doing Saturday Night Live. Yeah. And Kalina and I didn't know we had rehearsals. And we were asking everybody, yo, when's rehearsals? They didn't know. We get to SIR Studios and Puff on us. He spazzes out on us. Like, and he was like, we y'all don't want it. He always go with the y'all don't want it, the Jedi mind treatment. He makes you believe that you suck all to hell. And you've been working all hours of the night, and me and him got in a huge
what did he say to you, like verbatim?
I can't even go into detail. He was like, y'all bitches don't want it. Y'all don't want it. And I was like, Puff, why you talking so loud? And I've kind of always, you know, been respectful. I've never really went too out of line with Puff. I threw my
Can you imagine him getting in your face and calling you out your name and calling you be this, be that, and you're his artist, you showing up for rehearsal, and he just disrespecting you on some y'all bees don't want it, whoop whoop whoop, calling you, disrespecting you? Ciao, baby. That's crazy. Let's continue.
Purse down. I was like, well, you want to go, we can go. There was this chess battle that happened between him and I think everybody's eyes was like, Dawn. Like D-Rock was looking at me like, little bit, like, where you gonna go with that? And I think that was the first time Puff was like, yeah, I needed to maybe slow down on that moment. That was my first time both of us ever seeing a side that I don't think we've ever saw with neither one of us.
Oh, that's Diddy, man.
Yo, that was...
People have lost careers.
That was New Orleans meets New York that day.
You don't want to find yourself in that dark, lonely place.
That's he says it consistently.
That's one of his famous quotes.
Right.
Wow, man, you survived that.
I survived a lot, but it was great. I love every minute of it.
All right, so that's what she said on Sway in the morning, and that was an interview that she did 12 years ago. Now, she did another interview with a person by the name of Wild Wayne, and this was an interview 4 years ago, and she basically talked about when she did Making the Band and how on the show, he would basically traumatize a lot of them, and he would tell her that she was ugly and all types of things like that. So let me pull that up real quick for you guys. And then I'm going to get into the lawsuit. So this is her right here on Wild Wayne. And I'm going to just play a little bit of it, and then we'll go into the lawsuit.
What was the craziest thing that happened that didn't make it to the...
Hold on, let me bring it back just a little smidget.
Scripted. Like now, reality shows are they're not really reality. They you know, it's
So
this was brilliant. This was brilliant. He knew it was like he put rats in a playground and said, "Ow," and he just was manipulating it all. And
the puppeteer, the marionette.
The band was good, but this was better because it was girls, all girls. It wasn't boys and girls from New York. It was girls from all over with all kind of personalities, and he manipulated it, and he did it geniusly. For us, it was traumatizing.
What was the craziest thing that happened that didn't make it to the camera with you?
Okay, so I was signed to this group here called Yeah Brother Records.
Yes.
And they were the worst people ever. And I don't care if this is not. And I did not, I didn't know when Puff found out that I was still signed. I didn't know he wanted me. I just knew he was like, you're signed and that's illegal from the contract, so you going home. And every day after we would do a thing, he would bring me in and be like, I don't know what's going on, but they won't let you go. Are you having sex with these guys? Like, what's going on with this? And he was like, he'd be like, you're not even worth it. You going home. And I would go to my room and I would be waiting for them to send, and the next day I wouldn't get sent home.
Mind you, he's having this conversation with her, and at the time, she said that she was 17 years old. So at 17 years old, when she went to go try and do her audition for Making the Band, she's underage, so a lot of the things had to go through her father. So in the midst of her trying to get out of this contract that she previously signed as a 17-year-old, Diddy is coming up to her underage and talking to her about, oh, like, what's going on? Like, why these people not trying to let you out the contract? Are you sleeping with them? She was underage.
And he would do it every day, and I would literally be so stressed out. Like I was so skinny. My dad was stressed out because from what I heard, they were calling my dad like, how do we get them out of this? So they were asking Puff for a lot of money, right, to get me out of the contract. I didn't know any of this was going on. I just know he got me in, and he kept telling me, I'm gonna send you home. And he did that.
Did you want to punch him in the face?
No, because he did other things that were crazy that made me want to punch him. Like bringing us in a room and saying, you're ugly, like you got to fix your face. Like wild stuff. Like Puff was but he was preparing us for what the industry would be.
All right. So you see how she tried to justify it? Can you imagine somebody telling you to come in a room and she's like coming in the room trying to work and he's like, ugh, you're ugly. Like, fix your face. You ugly. Like, what? But then she later justifies it by saying he was preparing them for the industry. And I mean, if that's the justification you want to give.
But if we would have done what we did in this time, Puff would have been crucified. Because you can't talk to women now. Like the levels of what he was saying was like, it was aggressive. It was really aggressive. It was crazy. And then the last day, when I was about to pick the band, he made me change 12 times. And I didn't know why. Because I just knew I was going home. There would be no way that I didn't think he would buy a contract. I didn't know what was going on. And the reason why he was making me change is because he was going to pick me that whole time. But he made me feel like shit and be stressed out because he wanted to see if I would be off my game. If it would change me in any way. Mm-hmm. Then he would be like, she's not worth it. I had no clue. I just thought he was like, trash.
He was trying to make you force your way out.
Right. And I just never...
And you didn't fold.
Or he was perhaps trying to see how far he can go with you, how far he can push those boundaries before you had pushback. And the more he pushed, the more he knew he could get away with. Child, if y'all don't know about me, I've done like industry stuff as far as like music videos. I've been around the music industry in my early 20s, and I was in the Hollywood streets, okay? I had got many people, like producers of shows, rappers, people who, own magazines and all kind of stuff, like make advances or think that because they have certain titles that you just go get in a box or whatever. Me, I always been a person to where I always would be like, well, shoot, I guess I don't want it that bad because I'm not sucking your wanky dank. You're not going to talk to me crazy. And I'm not just about to do anything for fame. Okay. Period. Like I'm not one of the girls. Like you push my boundaries. It's very much you got me effed up and I'll figure out another way. Okay. I've always been super prideful all the time. Like now today, like if you go back and you talk to people, like when I was out in the Hollywood streets, I never muddied up my name. There never was no industry pass around. There never was no rat. There never was none of that behind my name, because even though there are celebrities or famous people, rich people that I did date, I was very, very, very selective in who I dated. And I always kept a certain level of integrity no matter what, because I'm just not the one or the two. Like, yes, I want to model. Yes, I want to be in the industry. Yes, I do want to advance, be successful and things like that. But it's a limit to that. Like, I'm not just doing anything. Okay? I'm very much not that girl. So to me, he basically was testing her to see how far he can go. Somebody telling you to change 12 times just to see if you would quit. I very much would have quit. I just, certain people built for it and certain people ain't. I'm just not one of the people that was built for it, because after outfit change number 4 of 5, it would have been a wrap, okay? It would have been a wrap. And, it's crazy. Let me play a little bit more and then we'll get into these deets.
No, I had no choice. I mean, when the last time anybody from New Orleans was ever had an opportunity? All I kept thinking was like, we don't get shots like this. So I just kept like going hard. Yeah, I just kept going every day until he couldn't cut me. And then
you didn't tell Puffy, come to the 9th Ward.
No.
And then you gonna understand why I'm good.
But I knew after. I realized after that he was rooting for it. But it was at a cost, and I didn't know that, and I had no clue. I never knew who was gonna make the band, but I knew that he was playing with me, and I thought that it was because it was good for the show, because they filmed it all. They just never showed it.
It was
They
just good
filmed all.
television.
Y'all thought he was manipulating me because I was gonna be the story of that trash girl that got signed that played us. Like I thought I was gonna be a part of a script. So I never knew that whole time he knew the band. Like he knew what the band was gonna be. I never knew that until after.
Interesting. Crazy, 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 crazy. And you know what's even crazier? In the beginning of August, I was kind of like throwing, I was posting like throwbacks of times, like different celebrities that I ran into, different celebrities. And literally in the beginning of August, I had posted a video. I mean, not a video. I had posted a photo of me and Don or whatever. So let me share this photo and then we're going to get into it. So I was like going through the years of me outside in the industry and all of that. And this is one of the ones that I recently, like just one day I was just going through my phone. I was going through memory lane in the beginning of August. And I was just sharing like all the celebrities that I, you know, not all because, child, I only shared a few. But I was going through memory lane and I was just like, oh, 2009 was lit. 2008 was lit. 2010 was lit too. Whoop de whoop. I ran into, you know, just showing stuff. And it's so funny that she was one of the people that I shared recently. And now fast forward, she is out here suing Diddy. Now this was, I think we had, and I wasn't necessarily with her. I was with my homeboy Hit Boy, I want to say. And I think I think we had went to Club Guys and Dolls. And Don was like with Hit Boy. And then afterwards, they were all staying in the same hotel. We went to the hotel. And it was just epic. Like, I was outside. But anyways, let's get into this lawsuit. Let's get into what was said. I have not even read through it yet. So I don't even know what was said exactly. I said that I was going to read it with y'all. So if I mess up, if I have some flubs, it is what it is. Okay, it is what it is. Okay, because baby, sometimes it just give that. You know, you should do a read through and then, you know. But I got time for that. I got stuff to do. I got stories to cover. I got most stuff that I have to get to. So let's get it. Somebody said Neek favors Bobby Christina in this photo. In this photo right here. Anyway, let's see. So it says Don Angelique Richard versus Sean Combs, Harv Pierre, Remote Productions, Inc., New Remote Productions, Inc., the Nordlinger Group, LLC, November 15th, Diddy's House Recording Studio, Bad Boy Entertainment, Bad Boy Records, LLC, Bad Boy Entertainment Holdings, Bad Boy Production, blah, 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 all of his little bad boy, this, that. All the little labels, and all of that. So someone said, let's read through it. All right, so right here it says, you said it's the gap and smile. Somebody else said it's the hair and angle. I mean, I've heard people say that I look like Bobby Christina, but I just don't think I look like her in that photo. So I just felt like it's interesting because anytime somebody see a girl that has a gap in the same skin color, they say you look like that person. Like, but anyway, I've been like, people done said I look like a lot of people throughout the years, so that's neither here nor there. I've been told a whole bunch of celebrities that are dark skinned, and I just be like, how can I look like all of these people and they all look different? Okay, it just be that. Like, I be looking like I done got Tweet, I done got Sierra, I done got Tika Sumpter, I done got Bobby Christina, I done got Foxy Brown, I done got who else have people said I look like? Literally, majority of the people who are dark skinned or brown skinned, they say I look like them, and they all look different. And I just chalk it up to, it is what it is. Anyways, they are beautiful. So, hey, you know, Bobby Christina is beautiful. All the other people I named beautiful. So, hey, I don't take it as a diss or nothing. I just be feeling like it's interesting. But anyways, back to the reading of the somebody said that's because you look like all of them. LOL. Child, how, Sway? And they all look different. But anyways, all right, let's get back to this. Y'all are funny. All right, so plaintiff Dawn Angelique Richard, by and through her attorneys, the Bloom Firm and IP Legal Studio, LLC, brings this action against defendants. Miss Richard alleges, upon knowledge concerning her own experience and upon information and belief as to all other matters. Dawn Richard, known professionally as Dawn Richard, is an American musician, singer, songwriter, and performer. She gained widespread recognition as a member of the girl group Danity Kane, formed by defendant Sean Combs, and later transitioned into a key member of Mr. Combs' band Diddy Dirty Money. Defendant Sean Combs, once a celebrated hip-hop mogul, popularity known by his stage name Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Puffy, Diddy, or Love, skyrocketed to fame in the late 1990s and became a powerful and enduring figure in the music and entertainment industry. In 1998, Mr. Combs explained the origins of his stage name in the USA Today interview. His nickname was Puff because he had a temper and was known to huff and puff when he was angry. Over the decades following his rise to fame, Mr. Combs' star-studded larger-than-life persona overshadowed his vicious temper and pervasive acts of violence towards those in his inner circle, specifically women. Mr. Combs' namesake temper frequently manifested in physical violence. Mr. Combs regularly hurled objects in fits of rage, often throwing items such as mobile phones, laptops, food, and studio equipment across the room or at people. On numerous occasions, Miss Richard witnessed Mr. Combs brutally beat his girlfriend, Miss Cassandra, aka Cassie. His persistent abuse included choking and strangling Miss Ventura, striking her with his hands and with objects, smacking her, punching her, and throwing items at her, including a scalding hot pan. On many occasions, Miss Richard tried to intervene, offering Miss Ventura support and encouragement to leave Mr. Combs each time, and Mr. Combs learned of her efforts to help Okay, it says, wait. Each time Mr. Combs learned of her efforts to help Miss Ventura and become enraged, threatening Miss Richards' life with statements such as, "You want to die today? I make a nigga go missing and I end people." Okay, so we're gonna pause right there. A lot of people have made statements and they're like, "Oh my God, like, why wait so long? Oh my God, like, if it was me, I would have said something immediately." Now, me, I'm very much no nonsense. I don't let people play with me. I'm not about to play with you. But it's different when you feel like your life can literally vanish and you feel like the person making the threat could make do on those threats. Now, a lot of rumors have been circling Diddy since the early 90s. And since he was with Biggie, there was rumors about that. There was rumors about Tupac. There was rumors about the Shine incident where Shine went to prison and they were saying Diddy was the one with the pew-pew. And there has always been rumors of how he can touch people and things like that and how he can get away with it. So in these cases, I don't think that that's normal for a person where it's like, okay, you got me effed up, whatever, versus somebody who you see acts out in a fit of rage and you see and you hear these rumors of these people that are off or effed up or whatever, and he's continuously getting away with it. You tend to move a little bit differently in those situations. So, let's continue. So she says, so she tried to intervene when he was putting the pause on Cassie, and he would make threats, basically saying, "Do she want to die? She making it go missing. I am people." It says, compounding Mr. Combs' violent acts and death threats, he flagrantly exploited Miss Richards' musical talent as a singer and writer while withholding her rightful earnings, stealing her copyrighted works, and subjecting her to years of inhumane working conditions, which included groping, assault, and false imprisonment, amongst other violations. For nearly a decade, Mr. Combs manipulated Miss Richard with mantras that submission to his depraved demands was necessary for career advancement, instilling in her belief that such abuse and exploitation were required for female artists to succeed in the music industry. It was not until Miss Ventura's bravery in coming forward that Miss Richard realized her own personal suffering was tied to many years of use by Mr. Combs that had become normalized for her. As more women courageously come forward, plaintiff has been empowered by this collective strength and now adds her voice to the growing choir or chorus of victims bravely sharing their harrowing stories. Together, they seek justice and stand in solidarity as the latest victims of the hashtag #MeToo movement in the industry. Miss Dawn Angelique Richard is a resident of the state of California and was employed by Defendants Remote Production, Inc., New Remote Production, Inc., Bad Boy Entertainment, LLC, Bad Boy, blah, 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 blah. Hold on, let's get to the end of the companies. All right, it says from 2005 until 2012. At all relevant times herein, Miss Richard met the definition of an employee of Defendant Bad Boy Records and related entities at all relevant times herein. Miss Richard was a resident of the state of New York. Defendant Sean Combs, upon information and belief, resides within the state of California at all relevant times herein. Mr. Combs met the definition of an employer of Miss Richard under all relevant statutes. Defendant Harv Pierre, Mr. Pierre, upon information and belief, resides within the state of New Jersey. At all time relevant herein, Defendant Harv Pierre was president of Bad Boy Entertainment and Bad Boy Records in New York and met the definition of an employer of Miss Richard under all relevant statutes. Defendant Remote Productions, Inc., RPI, and New Remote Productions, Inc., NRPI, are Delaware corporations and television production companies which, upon information and belief, were created by Mr. Combs to produce Making the Band in New York and in California. At all relevant times herein, RPI and NRPI employed Miss Richard under all relevant statutes. Defendant, the Norlinger Group, LLC, is a finance firm with its principal place of business in New York, and on information and belief was employed by other named defendants herein to pay an account to Miss Richard pursuant to her employment with other named defendants. On information and belief, the Norlinger Group, LLC, formed November 15th, LLC, for purposes of dispersing funds related to Making the Band. Upon information and belief, defendant Daddy's House Recording Studio, Inc. is a New York corporation and music recording studio owned by Defendant Bad Boy Records in New York at all relevant times herein. Miss Richard was an employee required to work said studio. Defendant Bad Boy Entertainment, LLC, is a music, media, and entertainment company founded by Defendant Sean Combs, which includes the record label Defendant Bad Boy Records, LLC. Defendant Bad Boy Entertainment, LLC. Okay, so hold on. I don't care about the companies. Let me get to where it's picked back up with this stuff. Because I'm going to just be... okay. Because this is just naming all the people that she's suing within this lawsuit and where they are located and all that. All right, so it says this court has jurisdiction pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 1331 and 1343 as this action asserts violations of blah, 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 and therefore raises federal questions regarding the deprivation of Ms. Richards' rights. The court has supplemental jurisdiction over Ms. Richards' related claims arising under the state and city law pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 1367. Venue is proper in this court pursuant to 28 U.S.C. because a substantial part of the events or omissions given rise to this action occurred in this district, and defendants Sean Combs and Bad Boy Records conduct substantial business and are domiciled in this district. Okay, so it says factual allegations. So Miss Richard is selected to be in Mr. Combs' all-female musical group Danity Kane after competing on MTV's Making the Band. In or around 2004, Miss Richard was selected to participate in season 3 of MTV Network's reality television show Making the Band. The show centered around the formation and development of a new musical group under the mentorship of Mr. Combs. The contestants would compete and be chosen by Mr. Combs to form a band which would go on to create albums and perform. For aspiring artists like Miss Richard, Making the Band represented a concrete path to a career in the entertainment industry. Miss Richard appeared in season 3 and 4 of Making the Band, which was first aired in 2005, and in season 5 of Making His Band, which aired in 2009. Out of thousands of contestants, Miss Richard, along with approximately 12 other women, were selected to participate in season 3 of Making the Band. 5 women, including Miss Richard, were ultimately chosen to be in the group Danity Kane, which was a name by Miss Richard. Now, in one of the interviews that I showed you guys where she said that he would basically like call her ugly and stuff, she talks about the issues that she had with Danity Kane, and she talks about how she created the name. So that's this interview right here with Wild Wayne. It was a really good interview, so definitely check it out. She talks about how she came up with the name, what was her influence behind coming up with the name Danity Kane, and so much more. So anyways, so it says prior to and including the first Danity Kane album, Making the Band was filmed entirely at Daddy's House Recording Studio in New York. The Making the Band content that focused on Danity Kane work on its second album, Welcome to the Dollhouse, was filmed at Daddy's house and Mr. Combs' Miami residence. Other Making the Band episodes included Los Angeles and a third filming location. Upon information and belief to create Making the Band, camera crews filmed 24 hours a day, gathering months' worth of footage to condense into mere hours of entertainment for viewers. Danity Kane released its self-titled debut album in August 2006 and its second album, Welcome to the Dollhouse, in March 2008. Danity Kane's first album sold over 4,000. Okay, I don't care about how much it sold. Where's the juice? Mr. Combs fired bandmate Aubrey and D. Woods from Danity Kane on television at the height of its fame in 2008, which resulted in Danity Kane being disbanded in 2009. It says Miss Richards first encounter Mr. Combs' aggressive, intimidating behavior and all of that. It says during the auditions and on the set of Making the Band, Mr. Combs projected an aura of superiority, wealth, and power. Mr. Combs regularly wore sunglasses and avoided looking the female contestants in the eyes, contributing to an atmosphere of uncertainty and intimidation. During the auditions, Mr. Combs spoke to the female contestants in a hostile, condescending manner, making disparaging gender-based remarks such as calling them fat, ugly bees, and 304s. Miss Richard felt threatened and intimidated by Mr. Combs' blatant disdain for the young women like herself who were excited for the opportunity to be on his show. Once the ban was made, Mr. Combs' contempt for women was readily apparent as he continued to display aggressive and hostile behavior towards Miss Richard and her all-female Danity Kane bandmates. Mr. Combs regularly referred to the 5 women as Bs and 304s and denigrated their physical appearances. By way of example, Mr. Combs stated that Miss Richard was too skinny and needed to do something about her face. On one occasion in or around 2005, during the first season of Making the Band, Miss Richard observed Mr. Combs' ex-partner and the mother of his 3 children, Kim Porter, leaving Mr. Combs' recording studio in tears with visible facial injuries, including a lacerated lip. Realizing that Mr. Combs was capable of committing acts of violence against women caused Miss Richard to feel deep apprehension and fear that Mr. Combs could one day physically harm her. Miss Richard was present when Mr. Combs was introduced to Cassie for the first time in or around 2006. The moment Mr. Combs first saw Miss Ventura, which is Cassie, his demeanor noticeably shifted. Mr. Combs positioned himself directly in front of Miss Ventura's seat, invading her personal space and fixated on her with an intense, unyielding stare, isolating her from the other people in the room, including Miss Ventura's then boyfriend, music producer Ryan Leslie. Coincidentally, this first meeting between Mr. Combs and Cassie was the first time that Don was in Mr. Combs' presence without a camera crew filming. Observing Mr. Combs behave in such an intimidating, predatory manner, the first time they were off camera made Don feel deeply apprehensive and afraid of him. Subsequently, Cassie ended her relationship with Ryan Leslie and began dating Mr. Combs, who would become violent and abusive towards her. Okay, it says now we're gonna get into her other claims. Okay, let me see what y'all saying in the chat. What's up to all of y'all? Make sure y'all hit the like button. If you guys have not hit the like button already, make sure you do that now. I appreciate y'all so much. June says, so he did all this and nobody has proof it's cap. Now, June, I'm not sure how old you are, but this happened in a time where people was not quick to pull out their phone and record. Now, we have smartphones now to where you have endless hours and hours of video footage and endless hours and hours of or space for pictures and all of that. Now, back in 2006, 2005, we were dealing with flip phones, okay? People were not walking around with devices that can just capture all of these things. A lot of these things that happen were in an era before social media time that we have now. Like back in those days, we had little Razor flip phones to where even if they did have some type of proof or video, it'd be super grainy. The quality was not that great. And it just wasn't where we are with technology now today. And that wasn't something that people, that wasn't their mindset. Like, oh my God, somebody did something. Let me hurry up and, pull out my phone. The only time that people were really inclined to like record stuff was fights. And this was like in a World Star era where if somebody had a fight or something, then you'll use your last bit of space to try to capture it. But if you're in a situation with a boss or, certain interpersonal mingling, it's not the same situation. So let me show what she said. Now let's see what else anybody said. Shauna Marie also said, there's no evidence though, just statements, no recordings from her experience. How? Well, I just explained how, Shauna Marie, so I'm not sure if you understand that. Chocolate D111 says, everybody isn't lying, but he has been untouchable aside from having to pay Cassie, and so on and so forth. So let me put those two comments on the screen really quickly. And I want to know, those of you guys who are watching, do you agree with June? And do you agree with Shauna Marie? All right. So June says she did all this and nobody has proof. It's cap. And Shauna Marie says there's no evidence though, just statements, no recordings from her experience. How? And what I also will say in addition, there's documented proof of her speaking of these things over the years. She's mentioned him calling her ugly in interviews as far back as 12 years ago. She's mentioned how intimidating and how threatening he was years ago, like way before there was a lawsuit from Cassie. She's been alluding to the toxic environment in which she had to work under. So it's not like she just pulled this out of a hat and never said anything. I just played in the beginning of this stream how she talked about this thing, and this was 4 years ago from that interview. And then I played an interview from 12 years ago that she did with Sway in the Morning. So, I mean, if you just follow the story over the years, you can get what it is. Now, let's continue reading, but I just wanted to know from you guys watching, do you agree with these two statements or no? Because y'all could disagree with me and agree with them. Yeah, y'all let me know. All right, so let's get into these harassment claims and all of that. So let's get into these things right here. So it says, for the majority of Miss Richards' tenure as a member of Danity Kane and Diddy Dirty Money, Mr. Combs required her to remain at his various residences and studios in New York, Los Angeles, Florida, and New Jersey for activities such as recording, rehearsing, dressing, preparing costumes, and exercising. Throughout the productions of Making the Band 3 and 4, Mr. Combs deprived Miss Richard and her Danity Kane bandmates of basic needs such as adequate food and sleep. When Miss Richard or her Danity Kane bandmates requested meals or rest, Mr. Combs refused and chastised them with derogatory comments like, "You bees don't want this," or "Y'all are not hungry enough, and I'm paying you bees to work." This demeaning behavior gradually undermined Mrs. Richards' confidence and contributed significantly to her growing feelings of insecurity and fear of reprisal, reprisal, whatever, from Mr. Combs. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs would regularly be awake for prolonged periods of time because he was high during these periods. Mr. Combs demanded continuous access to Miss Richard and her Danity Kane bandmates, often forcing them to record and rehearse for stretches of 36 to 48 hours without breaks. Forced to choose between eating and sleeping, Miss Richard lost a significant amount of weight, weighing approximately 100 pounds. At a height of 5'4", Miss Richard began to normalize these extreme conditions and perceived them as standard requirements of her participation in Danity Kane. Mr. Combs regularly sent his associates to wake Miss Richard and her Danity Kane bandmates in overnight hours so he can watch them rehearse. The regularity of these disturbances led Miss Richards to adapt by sleeping in a sitting position, fully dressed and with makeup on, heightening her anxiety. Over time, this abnormal sleeping arrangement came to feel routine, further normalizing Mr. Combs' invasive demands. In addition to exalting exhausting rehearsals. Mr. Combs required Miss Richard and her bandmates to participate in intense workouts with a personal trainer. And it says on one occasion, while running on the beach, Miss Richard became so dehydrated that she vomited. Instead of offering medical assistance, MTV Network's camera crew filmed the incident, contributing to her acceptance of such treatment as part of her professional life. The unrelenting and rigorous schedule of rehearsals, performance, and near constant filming that Mr. Combs imposed caused Miss Richard to experience extreme weight loss, dehydration, fatigue, and painful rashes from the microphone pack she was required to wear on her back. These conditions intensified Miss Richards' feelings of powerlessness as she increasingly viewed them as part of her professional reality and feared the consequences of any resistance. In a further assertion of power and dominance, Mr. Combs insisted on holding meetings while dressed only in his undies. On one occasion in 2008 at his Miami residence, Mr. Combs emailed Miss Richards directing her to meet him in the living room. When she arrived, he was wearing only his undies, and Miss Richard asked Mr. Combs to put clothes on, but he refused, stating, "This is my effing house." Mr. Combs then conducted a meeting lasting approximately an hour while dressed in his undies, causing Miss Richards to feel violated and embarrassed and amplifying her feelings of powerlessness. Following the official Danity Kane breakup in early 2009 by Mr. Combs, Miss Richard experienced significant financial hardship. With no prospective opportunities for employment within the entertainment field, Miss Richards spent several months traveling from Baltimore to Daddy's House recording studio in New York without pay or allocated. Combs promised that Miss Richard compositions would result in a payment of license fees and royalties pursuant to her contract with Bad Boy Records. However, no such compensation was ever reported or paid to Miss Richard. Damages relative to these continuing copyright infringements will be proved at trial. So she's saying, listen, I didn't have the money that I should have had. And I can prove that I ain't have the money at trial. Okay? So she's saying, child, just as well as I'm going to tell y'all what's going on, I'm also going to back it up, period. So let me see. Puffy a wild boy. Somebody said, how am I doing? I'm doing great. Let's see. Did Blockiana Taina or Tiana what? Tiania. Blockiana Tiana? Is that what it is? Blockiana Tiana? Anyway. Blockiana Tiana says, did they force her to stay? And I think that the obvious answer would be no. They didn't force her to stay, but she was under contract. And, you know, for me, again, I'll just put her comment up there. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that. But for me personally, like I said, there's certain people who want it that bad. Okay? Me, I never wanted the fame or anything like that bad to where people could talk to me crazy. Like, I've always had a problem with, like, people talking to me crazy. Like, I'm just not cut for certain stuff. I'm an only child, and I very much ain't got the time, period. And that has been could have been to my detriment. But I think, in my opinion, like I said, the obvious answer would be that, of course, nobody forced her to stay, right? But this is a situation to where, number one, Puffy has the power to blacklist you. Okay? So if it don't work out with him, he has the connections, the power, and the authority to make sure you never get a singing career ever again. Number two, you have not only your, I want to say, drive to want to be famous, but you also have your family looking at you like, you know, utilize this opportunity and do what it takes. You know, like a lot of people got dreams and aspirations of like getting their family out the hood, you know, buying their mom, dad this large house, retiring them. And it's a lot riding on a person who wants to be a singer. Now, again, it ain't for everybody because it ain't for me. Okay? I'm very much, you got me effed up, but I'm not going to discredit or act like I don't understand why in her position she put up with certain things. Because again, this was prior to the Me Too movement. This was prior to the awareness that you can have a voice. It very much was industry standard that these girls could get treated like crap and they either had to put up or shut up. That very much was industry standard. Industry standard was there was no protection for them. There was no idea of like, oh, I don't like how you treated me, so I'm going to sue. It was very much you either do as I say or I'm blackballing you, period. So there was a lot riding on it. Again, it ain't for everybody because, child, I don't know. But I'm not going to act like I can't see both sides of the coin. And on top of that, it's his reputation of what he could do to you and what you see he doing to other people. So it's a lot of that. So let's continue. Somebody said, yeah, I remember she came onto the show with pretty much just the clothes on her back because her family had just went through Hurricane Katrina and had lost everything. Right. And so somebody in that position is going to think like, I got so many people riding on me, so much, you know what I mean? Like, let me not be a failure, you know? But anyway, let's continue. I just wanted to see what y'all was saying. Let's read some more. So where were we at? Oh, okay. So she said she wasn't getting her money on and she could prove it at trial. All right, so now it says, Diddy Dirty Money, Miss Richard experiences Mr. Combs' gender-based physical violence, criminal acts, and sexual assaults, threats, and intimidation. So we're going to go on over that. Let me see how many likes we got because I feel like the likes ain't liking. So hold on, let me look right here to see what's it giving. Let me see what's it giving. And I be feeling like YouTube very much be having your girl shadow ban. Like, for real, for real. The likes ain't giving. It's not giving according to how many people are watching. It's not giving. So I'm going to please ask you to hit the like button, period. I appreciate it. Also, hitting the like button is free. Sharing the video is free as well. Even if you share it to yourself in an email, send it to yourself in a text message. Sharing the link, it also puts us in the algorithm and it lets people know like, okay, we want to watch this channel. Now, I be going on breaks of posting and then not posting and posting, not posting. I need to get a lot more consistent. But I be having so much going on at once to where, child, it be all a blur. But if y'all could do me those solids by liking the video, sharing the video. I would greatly appreciate it. Those things are free of charge. Now, the things that you can also do in addition to support is you can bless the Cash App, you can bless the Super Chat, and you can ultimately go to my website, www.niquelatnight.com, spelled exactly like my channel. Night is N-I-T-E, and just browse on my website and see what you could get, you know what I'm saying? And help your girl out that way as well. Now, let's get back to this document and reading it. Okay, thank you, Lucifer, for the reminder of telling them. Get to it. Get to it. All right, so she says that she experienced all kind of stuff while she was a part of Diddy Dirty Money. So it says, by approximately the fall of 2009, many of Miss Richards' compositions have been recorded by other Bad Boy record artists. Due to the success of her compositions, Miss Richard was invited to meet with musical artist Kalina. I think when they're saying her compositions, I believe they're talking about how she used to write songs for other people. So her being a songwriter, I believe that's what they mean by her compositions. It says it was recorded by other Bad Boy records artists. So I believe they're talking about, like I said, her writing songs for other artists. Now, due to the success of that, she was invited to meet with musical artist Kalina, and shortly thereafter, Mr. Combs, Miss Richard, and Miss Harper formed a new group, Diddy Dirty Money. Now, in this interview, she talked about how that happened. Hold on, let me think. I think it was around the 40-minute mark. Let's see if it's right here.
Me and D could not talk to Puff that way because we would be the angry black women.
Right,
that would not
right.
fly. He gave her that leniency, so she got real comfortable.
Started smelling herself.
Well, she felt herself an equal.
Right.
Because on the streets, she was hanging with Kim Kardashian. She had the field. She had every right. She had every right. And he was like, "Oh no, but let me let you feel this real fast."
We reel you in.
Yeah, I'm like worth. I'm a billion sitting here.
I'm gonna show you better than I can tell you.
And his pride, and he said, "Fired," boom, like that. And I was like, "Oh, this is And then D, being D, spoke up, and she wasn't happy, and so he just put her in that category. D could have stayed, but at that point, he was like, "You want it? You go." And so they had this idea was put out to the world that Puff had this thing with me. That after we finished and that finale happened, Katrina had happened. We were in Baltimore. I was 7 months in my house with no money.
Right.
Just like, what is going on?
So people thought you and Puffy were an item?
No, they thought he had picked me as an artist.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah, as a solo
But
artist.
did people think y'all?
No, but I think they may have. I don't know. I was so busy confused as to what was the next step.
Right.
Because they were based in New York and I was in Baltimore just sitting there like, what is happening right now? And so.
All right. So basically what she's talking about is how Danity Kane ended and how the Dirty Money group was created. Now, that's the part that I'm about to start reading in the lawsuit. And she's basically breaking down about how Puff was upset, fired Aubrey, fired D or whatever, and then a lot of people thought that she had her own little side deals with Diddy or whatever, the reason why that happened. And she's saying that she did not have no side deals with him, that this all happened at like happenstance type of thing. So let's play it and then we'll read what she has in the lawsuit.
After the first month of just sitting around, like, because at that point, our business manager was indicted. We lost money. Like, it was crazy.
Wow.
Like, and meantime, guess who bought me out of the contract? So guess who was still on the label? I was.
You was still on the hook.
on the label.
Yeah.
And I was hearing that
recuperables.
And I was hearing rumors that Puff was known for putting people on shelves. Like, you would just be on the label and not have a whole, like, Sherry Dennis hadn't even had her first album. She was signing Puff for like 10 years.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm about to just have no career ever again.
All right. And mind you, she talked about this, and she did this interview 4 years ago, way before Cassie did her lawsuit, way before people start suing him. And she's talking about how in the industry, he had a reputation of shelving his artists. So you got to think with the mindset of like, damn, if I don't play ball, I'm never going to be able to work in the biz again. Like he had a lot of power and a lot of people fearing him to do whatever.
Yes.
But you on payroll, right?
No. No.
No, she was already knee deep after he bought out the contract.
No, I
he
had
still
no
was
money.
on recuperables.
I had no money, and I had only the money that I had
given. She needed to make him more money.
Yeah, so then I started taking the train, the New Orleans hustling us, right? I took the train to New York, and I was like, Puff, can I just take the shitty studio, like the small studio, and just write? And he was like, cool, on your dime. So I would take the train back and forth, and I would just write. And I would write like 5 to 6 songs a day, and I would just email it to him. And I did that for 7 months. He didn't haven't heard from him. He was just like, whatever. And then I got a call, and he was like, oh, yo, I'm doing this group project. It's called Project 27. And I'm thinking about having maybe Brandy and K Young and me. Like, I'm going to do a Soul to Soul vibe. And I'd like you to be one of the writers. And I was like, hell yeah, cool. I'll just be a writer. I won't be an artist anymore. I'll just be a writer. Because, at that time, Esther Dean, all these girls was making mad money as writers. Right. So I was like, cool. So I went to New York and I just started writing. And I was getting these insane tracks, y'all. Like tracks you have never heard of, like Prince level tracks. And now I think about going from Danity Kane and then getting records from like, Rodney Jerkins and like all this. Like,
musically gifted like producers.
Yeah, like insane. And I was just like, oh my God, right? Like writing. And I'm like, this is, and I would get records and I would hear this other girl on it. And she was dope. And I was like, I don't know who this is, but this is dope. So I would do my voice with her voice. And then I got a call and Puff was like, I want you to go to Atlanta and go in the studio with Rodney Jerkins and this girl named Kalina. And I was like, okay. I went in that studio and I was like, I had never seen excellence at that level. Like Kalina was so dope to me and so incredible. And they were just doing these sick, we did that for a week. And the records we did together, she inspired me, she motivated me. And again, I had just come from a group where it wasn't that. It wasn't that. We were very much like leftover and a leftover idea to something that was so next level. And then I got a conference call, like 2 months after that. And then Kalina and I was on the phone. And he was like, yeah, so, I'm very grateful for both of y'all. And I want to know, would y'all be in my group? And me and Kalina was like, hell yeah, we'll be in your group. Like, yeah. And after that, I experienced one of the most incredible albums. And I was a part of one of the most incredible albums till this day that has ever been done. And that was Last Train to Paris. And I was a part of Diddy Dirty Money. And that's how and so that made it worse because then everybody was like, see, we told you. Right. She had this thing with Puff when whole time that was not the case.
They had no idea. The trials and tribulations.
Right. If I didn't know the story, I would actually think that Puffy had you and Puffy had a side deal or a back deal.
I wish that would have been so financially great for me.
You're explaining and laying it all out. Yeah. It lets everyone know that.
No one ever knew it either. Yeah, no one ever knew it. And so then I went from having a man that was a boss, my boss, someone that had layers separated from him, to living in his home and seeing him as a father and he being my group member.
All right, so I'm going to stop it there. Let me read the lawsuit now. And again, this interview was done 4 years ago by a guy by the name of Wild Wayne. And it's titled Wild Wayne Unchained, Don Richard. And it was 4 years ago in New Orleans. So let me pull up the lawsuit now and let's read this part. All right. So let me break myself back small. All right. So it says, by approximately the fall of 2009, many of Miss Richards' compositions have been recorded by Bad Boy Records artists. Due to the success of her compositions, Miss Richard was invited to meet with musical artist Kalina Harper, and shortly thereafter, Mr. Combs, Miss Richard, and Miss Harper formed a new group, Diddy Dirty Money. Initial recording for Diddy Dirty Money album Last Train to Paris took place in Mr. Combs' home on Doheny Drive in Los Angeles, California. It says, on the first day of recording, Miss Richard and Miss Harper arrived at Mr. Combs' home and waited in the kitchen where Mr. Combs' girlfriend, Cassie, was frying eggs for him. Miss Richard observed Mr. Combs come down the stairs looking high, enter the kitchen, approach Cassie, and scream, "I've been asking you for my ish. I can't stand you, B. You never do it right." Mr. Combs pushed Cassie against the wall and choked her, then picked up a scalding hot pan of eggs and threw it at her, causing her to fall to the ground in a fetal position. Cursing and screaming, Mr. Combs dragged Cassie up the stairs. Frozen in shock and terror, Miss Richard heard glass shattering, crashing, and banging noises as Mr. Combs dragged Miss Ventura up the stairs. Miss Richard wanted to intervene and help Cassie, but Miss Harper adamantly refused to interfere in Mr. Combs' relationship and physically led Miss Richard out of the residence. Terrified and shaking, Miss Richard returned to her hotel where she was unable to sleep due to worrying about Cassie and her own safety. The following day, Miss Richard received a call demanding that she return to Mr. Combs' residence to continue recording. Mr. Combs brought Miss Richard and Miss Harper into the recording room in his studio, locked the door, dimmed the lights, and gave each of them flowers. Mr. Combs went on at length stating, "This is normal. This was just a lover's argument where no one was hurt. This is what love is. I'm giving you an opportunity. If you want to make it, you'll shut your mouth. If you say anything, there will be consequences." Mr. Combs further warned that people end up missing, being threatened while locked for over 20 minutes in a small enclosed space with Mr. Combs after observing Mr. Combs violently assault Miss Ventura the day before. Miss Richard was terrified and genuinely believed that Mr. Combs would follow through on his threats. In or around November 2009, after the Soul Train Awards in Atlanta, Georgia, Mr. Combs flew Miss Richard and Miss Harper to his house in New York on his private jet for an after party. There were many well-known celebrities at the after party, and copious amounts of illegal drugs were being openly consumed. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs had arranged for dozens of young women and girls, some of whom appeared to be underage, to be transported to the party. The women arrived wearing little to no clothing and were given drugs and alcohol, and many of them appeared lethargic or passed out while Mr. Combs and his guests performed hanky-panky acts on them. Miss Richard believed that her presence at the party was a test to see whether Mr. Combs could trust her. Mr. Combs repeatedly said things like, "This is a buffet. Enjoy yourselves. This is what we do. This is how we party." Miss Richard felt shocked and horrified at the sight of Mr. Combs and his guests violating incapacitated young women and implored Mr. Combs' personal assistant, Capricorn Clark, to allow her to leave. Miss Clark insisted that Miss Richard wait 15 minutes for Miss Clark to make it make sense. That is, to make Miss Richard's exit less conspicuous so that Mr. Combs would not notice that she had left, knowing that she was not free to leave and had to wait for Miss Clark to help her orchestrate her departure. Miss Richard experienced feelings of panic and trapped against her will. Mr. Combs regularly placed Miss Richard in similar situations with no means to escape at Mr. Combs' fueled parties. His guests, including Miss Richard, were required to surrender their phones upon entry. Mr. Combs kept the doors locked and guarded by security personnel, making it impossible for Miss Richard to leave without alerting Mr. Combs that she had done so. Mr. Combs hired police officers to attend his parties, sending a clear message to guests that his influence extended to law enforcement officers and creating a climate of fear and a tactic, warning that reporting him to authorities would be both unacceptable and futile. On many occasions, Mr. Combs had parties at his Miami, Florida residence that lasted for several days. At one of the parties, Miss Richard witnessed Mr. Combs openly stating that he had arranged for busloads of young exotic girls such as mixed, black and Asian, Indonesian, and albino. Once again, Miss Richard observed inebriated young girls being hanky-panky violated by Mr. Combs and his guests. In a state of panic and terror, Miss Richard fled to the bedroom. Mr. Combs had insisted she stay in and barricaded the door shut with furniture. Mr. Combs openly assaulted Cassie in front of Miss Richard and other witnesses on multiple occasions. On one occasion, in or around the fall of 2009, Diddy Dirty Money was in New York preparing to perform at a festival. Inside their vehicle, Mr. Combs grabbed Cassie's neck, pulled her out the van onto the grass, and pinned her head down, choking her while yelling, "You gonna get effed up today." This incident took place in the backstage area just outside the festival and was entirely visible to passers-by. In another instance, in or around early 2010, Mr. Combs punched Cassie in the face in the bathroom of a party in LA. Frequently, when Cassie attempted to voice an opinion or stand up, Mr. Combs would strike her or wrap his hand around her throat and her. On the first several occasions that they observed Mr. Combs assault Cassie, Miss Richards and Miss Harper spoke with Miss Cassie to support and encourage Cassie in escaping her relationship with Combs. It says every time that Miss Richard and Miss Harper tried to intervene, Mr. Combs learned of the conversation and became irate. Mr. Combs screamed at the women and he said, "Y'all bees don't get in my relationship. Don't tell my bee, Cassie, what she need to be doing. Just make money and shut the F up. I end artists. I shelve careers. You could be missing and you bees want to die today," among other threats. All right. So we're going to continue reading some more, but I want to read some of what y'all said. It says, sounds like Cardi B Money video. You what? Not y'all saying the room stank. Hanky panky buffet. Y'all know I gotta fit in. Y'all know I gotta fit in other words and whatnot and what have you. Hold on, give me 1 second. All right, so let's finish reading. What y'all think about her claims? Again, of course, we're gonna see more proof if this makes it to trial, and we don't know if she has zero evidence. Okay, just like there was video footage of Cassie getting beat at the hotel, and there was pictures of Cassie with bruises that we later saw. We don't know what she has or if there is discovery that can prove any of these things. I mean, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket and show all of your cards to the world. You got to save some stuff, you know, for that. So let me continue to read some more, and make sure y'all hit that like button, and make sure y'all go to my website, www.niquelatnight.com, spelled like my channel, to support your girl as well. Child, how many pages is it? This says 55 pages, and we on page 15. Whew. I don't know if I'm gonna make it to page 55. I'm gonna just tell y'all now. I don't know if we gonna make it. Rockstar Lifestyle might not make it, because we are on page 15 of 55. Now, a lot of it, sometimes the pages are like repeats of like what they said in the beginning. So we'll see. We'll see how far we get. But make sure y'all share the video, like the video, all that good stuff. And let's go read some more. Okay, so now it says that Interscope Records enabled Mr. Combs to do what he did. So it says Interscope Records enabled Mr. Combs' gender-motivated violence. Okay, so it says in or around late 2009 or early 2010, Bad Boy Entertainment, Bad Boy entered an agreement with Interscope Geffen A&M Records. Interscope, upon information and belief, Bad Boy was paid $50 million in exchange for Bad Boy future release being distributed through Interscope. In doing so, Mr. Combs intended to capitalize on Interscope's significant resources and enhance the promotion and sales of Bad Boy's releases, including Diddy Dirty Money's upcoming album. In the weeks and months leading up to Bad Boy Interscope deal, Mr. Combs had frequent meetings with producer and then CEO of Interscope Records, Jimmy Iovine. On one such occasion, Combs hosted a dinner at West Hollywood, California restaurant, which Miss Richard and Miss Harper were required to attend. Among the guests at the dinner were celebrities like Neo and Usher, as well as Mr. Iovine. At the dinner, Mr. Combs and Miss Ventura had an argument in front of the dinner guests. Mr. Combs hissed at Cassie in a screaming whisper and forcefully punched her in the stomach, causing her to double over in visible pain. Crying, she was doubled over in visible pain, and she was crying. Miss Clark escorted Cassie out the restaurant, and Mr. Combs remained and continued socializing with the dinner guests. At this point, Interscope Records clearly had actual knowledge that Combs was dangerous around females and that Combs was willing to brazenly batter a female in public. Even after Mr. Iovine watched Mr. Combs commit a violent assault in front of numerous high-profile witnesses, the Bad Boy Interscope deal took place and remained in effect, providing Mr. Combs with immense financial rewards and enabling him to commit further acts of violence without fear of repercussions. Watching Mr. Combs openly, put the beats on Cassie in front of Mr. Iovine and various celebrities, and observing that other powerful musical industry representatives were complicit in Mr. Combs' behavior, amplified Miss Richards' fears that Mr. Combs could one day harm her and that his actions would be accepted and normalized by everyone surrounding him. As part of the agreement between Bad Boy and Interscope, Interscope heavily promoted Diddy, Dirty Money, Last Train to Paris album. Mr. Iovine had presented Mr. Combs with a demo of Coming Home for him to produce, a song that would become a multi-platinum hit. Mr. Iovine was encouraging Mr. Combs to develop a new sound for the album, into which Interscope was investing significant resources. Miss Richard, Miss Harper, and Cassie all provided vocal performances on this project released in November of 2010. The album Last Train to Paris became Diddy Dirty Money most commercially successful project, providing vast financial rewards to both Interscope and Mr. Combs. Okay, so now it says Diddy Dirty Money, Mr. Combs subjects Miss Richard to labor, trafficking, and oppressive working conditions. Sure, it's crazy. I don't even think Cassie lawsuit was this long. She said, listen, I'm about to go in. She said, I'm going in. I'm going in. I'm going in. And I mean, I don't know. Again, I ain't built like that. I would have had to. I just ain't built like that. It's just crazy. But I don't know. So let's see where we at. I'm tired of reading this already. We on 17. I mean, y'all want me to read some more, or do we get the picture? Because I'm like tired already. I'm like tired already, but okay, we'll continue some more. So it says, in or around the fall of 2009, Diddy Dirty Money began recording the song Love Comes Down. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs continued to use drugs that caused him to remain awake for prolonged periods of time. When he was awake, he would demand that Miss Richard and Miss Harper record in the studio, where they would spend 3 to 4 consecutive days recording without a break to eat or sleep. Mr. Combs required Miss Richard and Miss Harper to remain at his homes, continuously denying the opportunity to return to their hotel rooms for breaks. The degree of control Mr. Combs exercised over Miss Richard's daily life and basic needs exacerbated the significant power imbalance and threatening atmosphere that ensured Miss Richard's compliance with his demands. Combs regularly left the studio and required Miss Richard and Miss Harper to stay and write verses to songs. Occasionally, Miss Richards tried to leave to get something to eat or to go to her hotel. Whenever Miss Richard tried to leave, Mr. Combs would call and demand, "Where the F are you? We have an album to make." Mr. Combs frequently made threats, especially if they asked for food or rest, stating, "You're a B. I don't want to see your effing face. I make ends go missing and I make things go away." Each time Miss Richard returned to the studio, immediately believing that Mr. Combs was capable of the following through with his threats, Mr. Combs criticized Miss Richards for being too skinny, yet denied her requests for food and demanded that she drink only peanut butter shakes. Mr. Combs had full meals prepared by a chef and ate them in front of Miss Richard and Miss Harper, never offering them food. Child, you better than me, girl. You is better than me, honey. Miss Richard and Miss Harper begged for food and rest breaks, but Mr. Combs refused, making statements such as, "Absolutely effing not," and "This is what it takes to be great." Mr. Combs' responses underscored the threat that he posed and heightened Miss Richards' concern for her safety and well-being. As Miss Richard continued to work nonstop, transitioning between the studio, rehearsals, workouts, and back to the studio, she became severely dehydrated and experienced chronic stomach cramping from being undernourished and excessively thin. On the numerous occasions that she told Mr. Combs that she was not feeling well, he called her lazy and diminished her health concerns, instilling in her further apprehension of communicating her needs. In or around the summer of 2010, Miss Richard experienced abdominal pain, swollen glands, and a fever. She was hospitalized and diagnosed with arthralgia, joint pain due to overuse, sprains, and tendinitis and infection, anemia, and a low white blood cell count. Miss Richard presented Mr. Combs with her medical records specifying that she needed to empathize eating well. She needed to emphasize eating well, being adequately hydrated, and getting adequate rest. But Mr. Combs ordered her to report to the studio the next day for another multi-day recording session. Mr. Combs' blatant disregard for her health and well-being cemented Miss Richards' fear of his authority and control over her career and health. Miss Richard continued to witness Mr. Combs' use towards Cassie. Cassie often wore sunglasses and makeup in an attempt to hide visible injuries. These incidents further solidified Miss Richards' fear of Mr. Combs, as they were constant reminders of the physical dangers she potentially could and eventually would face. Mr. Combs often exhibited uncontrollable anger during recording sessions, throwing objects like albums, laptops, and food against the wall or at individuals. Mr. Combs frequently flew into frenzied, unpredictable rages. Miss Richard feared making any misstep that could direct his anger towards her. However, her fears went beyond her immediate physical safety. Because she had witnessed Mr. Combs' violent nature, a side of Mr. Combs that the world had not yet seen, she feared that falling out of Mr. Combs' good graces, or worse, standing up to him or speaking out against him, could result in serious harm to her. Miss Richard frequently thought about Mr. Combs' threat about making people go missing and feared taking any action that could label her as a target. Despite Mr. Combs' violent threats, misogyny, Diddy Dirty Money experienced significant sales of records, selling 2 million copies of one single, 500,000 of another, in the U.S. and in Australia, 5 million single copies. Miss Richard unpaid wages and royalties are estimated at 1.2 million. That what I say? I'm getting sleepy. Yeah, that's 1.2 million, right? I think that's what that is. Anyway, I feel like I'm getting sleepy. Anyways, I believe that's she say her unpaid wages and royalties are estimated at 1.2. Miss Richard unpaid touring wages are estimated at over 350,000 for touring dates within the United States alone. In or around the summer of 2009, Miss Richard and Miss Harper were required by Mr. Combs to perform as part of Diddy Dirty Money and attend numerous promotional events, including late or overnight parties, all of which were under contract between Mr. Combs and Ciroc Vodka and between Mr. Combs and Diddy Beats pursuant to Bad Boy Interscope record deal. Miss Richard was never compensated for the extra time she spent fulfilling Mr. Combs' promotional contracts, including the Ciroc and Diddy Beats campaign. Mr. Combs was approximately paid $250,000 per Ciroc appearance. Mr. Combs did not compensate Miss Richard or Miss Harper for these appearances, or other than just $5,000 each on a handful of occasions. So it says Mr. Combs' ongoing explanation for withholding compensation was that their appearances were a requirement for their tour. Additionally, Miss Richard was required to appear and to promote Diddy Beats through parties, albums, songs, and videos. Over time, Mr. Combs was paid $6.25 million for 25 Ciroc shows that Miss Richard was required to attend. Following each show, Miss Richard and Miss Harper approached Mr. Combs to inquire about their insufficient and sporadic payments. Mr. Combs routinely responded with statements such as, "You bees aren't grateful. You don't want this." Miss Richards estimates losses from the Ciroc campaign promotions totaling at least $1.5 million upon information and belief Mr. Combs received in advance on Diddy beats, for which Miss Richards received no compensation. Between approximately 2009 and 2011, throughout Diddy Dirty Money's recording process, rehearsals, and performances, Mr. Combs repeatedly ordered Miss Richard to strip down to her undies. He frequently referred to her as a bee or a whore and made demeaning remarks about her body, alternatingly calling her lazy, fat, ugly, skinny, particularly in front of his friends, producers, and bodyguards. Mr. Combs frequently held meetings with Miss Richard wearing only his undies. Despite Miss Richard's protest and repeated requests for him to put on clothing in response, Mr. Combs called her a bee and a 304 and reminded her that she should be grateful for the opportunity to be there. Often, while they were recording in the studio, Mr. Combs would hold parties where he would invite young men and women who were scantily dressed and appeared underage to use and engage in acts. Miss Richard observed Mr. Combs and his colleagues kissing, groping, and inappropriately touching the young women. Upon information and belief, the participants often left the immediate area to have hanky-panky and return shortly thereafter. On numerous occasions between approximately 2009 and 2011, under the guise of preparing for performances, Mr. Combs would intrude into Miss Richards' changing room at Daddy's house unannounced while Miss Richard was undressed. Even though a female stylist was present and assisting Miss Richard with her wardrobe, Mr. Combs would grope Miss Richards' body, including her bare cheeks and her chest area near her boobies, with no legitimate purpose. And without Miss Richards' consent, Mr. Combs caressed her cheeks to show the stylist where he wanted her high-waisted undies position, and attempted to touch her boobs, claiming to show the stylist where he wanted the bra straps to go. When Mr. Combs would enter the changing room, Miss Richard would cover her chest with her hands to prevent Mr. Combs from seeing or touching her boobs. When Mr. Combs would touch her body, Miss Richard would attempt to swat his hands away and state, "Don't touch me." Mr. Combs frequently smacked Miss Richards' bare cheeks and often commented on her body, noting that although she was too skinny, she had cheeks. Ignoring her visible and communicated discomfort, Mr. Combs persisted and continued to intrude when Miss Richard was in the dressing room, continued to touch her cheeks and her boobs area under the guise of showing the stylist what to do, and continued to smack her cheeks without her consent. In or around 2010, Diddy Dirty Money performed in Glasgow, Scotland, where Mr. Combs engaged in overt hanky-panky advances towards Miss Richard. On numerous occasions when Miss Richard exited the dressing room fully styled, Mr. Combs looked at her approvingly and smacked her cheeks while making comments such as, "You looking good." "Okay, Don, okay. I see what this is," in a flirtatious tone. Each time Miss Richard moved away and asked him not to touch her cheeks, Mr. Combs disregarded her protests. On their last night in Glasgow, Miss Richard witnessed Mr. Combs and several other males running a train on his female assistant at a hotel pool. Miss Richard immediately left and went to her room. So she said, listen, I seen him and his boys running a train. And I got the heck out of there ASAP. Is the female assistant the Miss Clark girl? Hold on, wait. What was Miss Clark's job? Hold on. Okay, we on page 22. We'll get back to 22. Was Miss Clark the assistant, or is this a different person? I forget what she said the Miss Clark girl role was. Hold on one second. I'm trying to see what she said the Miss Clark girl role was. I think it was right. Hold on, y'all. I'm trying to. Capricorn. Okay. Okay, yeah. So it said, that's what I thought it said, that she was the personal assistant. So y'all see that part right there? Mr. Combs' personal assistant, Capricorn Clark. Line 6, paragraph 61, line. Is that the same one she said they was running a train on? Because right here she's listing. Because each time you talk about an incident, you have to introduce who you're talking about. So we got introduced to Capricorn as his personal assistant. And now on page 22, let's go back to 22. She's saying that they was running a train on his female assistant. Let me pull up Capricorn Clark real quick, because I think this was a light-skinned chick, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, I knew it was a light-skinned chick. Oh, hold on, let me show y'all. All right, so hold on. All right, so this is her. This is her. This is her. And it says, who is Capricorn Clark, Diddy's former longtime assistant? This is her. All right, this person right here, let's read this. on now with the ads and stuff. Now, this was a post that she said on the Neighborhood Talk. Don't take the path of the wicked. Don't follow those who do evil. Stay away from the path. Don't even go near it. Turn around and go another way. Doors be unlocked. You got to be willing to walk away from the money, full stop. 2011 was hell. Oh, dang, I'm in front of the... Okay. So this is the statement that she made. Around the time that Cassie had her lawsuit, I believe. Okay. What else this website say? This person right here, it says, hold on. It says, I wonder if Capricorn Clark had to sign an NDA because she was Diddy's personal assistant. I know a settlement was reached, but it's scary how many people may have seen that stuff going on that were silenced with money and paperwork. Wait, they had a lawsuit? Hold on, let's go through the rabbit hole real quick. They talking about... Okay, she was the assistant from 2001 until 2012. She Lauren London's sister? Child, see, I don't know about the. I don't know everything. So it say right here. It say that she's Lauren London's sister. And if I did know about her, I don't remember. It's been a long time. So it says, as per a Yahoo article published in September 2012, Diddy allegedly fired Capricorn Clark, the sister of actress Lauren London, for repeatedly stealing from his label. However, around the same time, Diddy took to his Twitter to clear the air that Clark has only given, never taken. While wishing her the best for her future ventures, he also stated that Clark has simply moved on to bigger and better things. While the real reason behind Clark's exit from her job as Diddy's right-hand woman was never released, she indeed moved on to other things. For instance, as per her interview, she did marketing and strategic work of RCA. Clark also described herself as a creative director, marketing consultant, kind of branding person. She further called herself a vintage streetwear collector of brands like Babe Supreme. I wonder if Capricorn Clark and Lorianne Gibson have anything to say on this Diddy subject. She also mentioned, wait, I'm trying to see, did she sue him? Clark was also a part of the reality show. She further... Hang on. What's that? I don't know. Anyway, this her. And so this who I think she talking about when who else would she be talking about when she said that they was running a train. Child, I just had to go down a rabbit hole real quick. So, it says, on the last night in Glasgow, Miss Richard witnessed Mr. Combs and several other males running a train on his female assistant at the hotel pool. Miss Richard immediately left and went to her hotel room. On their flight back to the United States the next day, Miss Richard asked Mr. Combs, "Where's his assistant?" And Mr. Combs replied, "I don't give a F where that B is." Miss Richard later learned that Mr. Combs had taken his assistant's passport with him to the United States, leaving the assistant stranded in the UK. In Glasgow, Miss Harper confided in Miss Richard that her husband and manager, Tony Vick, Mr. Vick, was sick. After an especially severe assault, she confided in Miss Richard that she wanted to leave Mr. Vick, and Miss Richard helped her to plan her exit from the relationship. However, Miss Harper and Mr. Vick reconciled, and both Mr. Combs and Mr. Vick, who had a close relationship, learned of Miss Richard's role in helping Miss Harper. Both Mr. Combs and Mr. Vick became noticeably distrustful of Miss Richard, which exacerbated her fears of harm and reprisal. When Mr. Combs would require his Diddy Dirty Money bandmates to stay at his residence in Miami, Miss Richard would barricade herself inside her room at night, placing heavy furniture against the door because she feared being harmed in her sleep. In or around late December 2010, Miss Richard, Miss Harper, and Cassie were in Mr. Combs' Los Angeles home when Mr. Combs stated, "I want to gift you some boobs for Christmas." Mr. Combs reached out and cupped Don's boobs without her permission and stated, "You're an A. I'm thinking a D." Miss Richard recoiled in shock and left the room. Throughout the above-mentioned time period when Miss Richard resisted Mr. Combs' advances, Mr. Combs retaliated by denying her singing parts in songs, removing her from songs, refusing to allow her to sing in performances, and turning her mic off during performances. The more Miss Richard rebuffed his advances, the more Mr. Combs' retaliatory behavior increased. Mr. Combs he assaults and falsely imprisons Miss Richard. All right, so we're going to go on to this. This is page 23. We're going to go to this, but let me go get me some ice so that I can drink some water because I'm becoming a little parched. While I go get me some ice, I'm gonna play the YouTube video that I was playing before. Play a little bit of that. What this is. Dang, we almost 2 hours in this thing. All right, let me go give me some ice and stuff. And then I'll be back. Let me play a little bit of this interview. And I'll be right back. Child. It's a whole lot of.
So like understand that dynamics. You went an $800 million boss that that was so unattainable. Like it was like he controlled you as a puppet level to like you vocally training him. Like in the studio with him, like I'm vocally producing him because he's a singer. He's never been a singer, and he wants to sing.
Y'all are. He's your counterpart now,
like an equal. Like and he's asking me to help him vocalize these records, right? So that became like wild to me, like and not just going to a studio and living in his home and recording in his home, being around his family, his mother, like it just was. That was mind-boggling to me. Yeah, and then, being in the studio and just Busta Rhymes, Drake, Beyonce, Jay-Z, Kanye, Pharrell, just walking on through, hanging out with us, drinking, like everybody just like...
Was the group and the music and the concepts too progressive?
Yeah, people slept. And here's the thing, right? I will say this to the end. I would have stayed in Danity Kane. Because I always wanted to be a part of a group, and I would have stayed in Dirty Money. Puff dictated my career twice, and shut it down twice.
Wow.
And it was the saddest thing because I think with Dirty Money, he let it go because he was devastated that he just knew it was gonna go, and when it didn't, he let it go. He quit it.
Right.
He was hurt because he put so much money, and I'm so mad at him for doing that because I felt like if he would have just stayed the course, man, because everybody stole like like right now, Dirty Money would be so next level and so on point, and I'm so mad at him for giving up. I'm mad at him. He don't like to fail, and I'm mad at him for not sticking the course on that because I think we were incredible.
You know, but with the people that have those type of brilliant ideas,
yeah,
sometimes they get real salty.
Yeah,
if it doesn't blast off sensitive. Immediately because you know the greatness that it has.
He had spent money and it was great, and again
he probably got pissed with the public for
and it was
not
crazy
understanding.
For me because I went from sewing Forever 21 costumes, right, no one caring, to wearing Rodarte and to wearing Gucci and Versace and wearing all of these like designers that, I mean, I was wearing $10,000-$15,000 outfits a day. Mm-hmm. The levels of my mind, like it was like to see both sides of it, right? To see both sides of it was like our first show was 50,000 people in Brazil at Fashion Rocks. We went on a plane with Grace Jones, and Grace was on our album.
No,
like I got to vocal produce Grace Jones.
Spazzed, huh?
I mean,
did you spaz when you met Grace Jones?
We was drinking and smoking, bro. It was like crazy. It was like she was drunk and high, and she was singing and yeah, you would. And I can't explain to anyone the levels of understanding that duality of seeing both sides of what it means to be at the pit of something and then to be a part of something that someone puts like the actual money beyond, right? You know, behind. And it was cool to watch. But he got sad, man. I mean, we did SNL. Like I was one of the first, like to be on SNL.
First New Orleans
girl to be on
SNL. Saturday Night Live.
Like that shit was insane to me, y'all. Like Ben Stiller with my parents met Ben. Like the levels of what that was like, man, I was so mad he let that go. He broke us up on an email. Like he hit us up and was like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, we're gonna do the BET Awards, we're gonna win Best Group, and then that's gonna be it. That's gonna be us. We was in the middle of tour. And we just let it go.
Wow.
And I was like, so that was the second time that I had all this opportunity, and it was just like, we good.
So with that happening, and you getting punched in the face again,
twice,
Sean,
like
I still went to him, and I said, bruh, we had transitioned when we did Dirty Money. We were with Interscope. We left Atlantic and went to Interscope, and I was like, yo, we'll talk. I'm loyal, right? I was like, if I do my solo career, I would love to be on this label with you. Like, and he was like, if you do this kind of music or anything remotely close to this Dirty Money thing, nobody gonna sign you. Like, cause he at that point was like, if you do this progressive, nobody ain't gonna rock with that. Like, you need to do standard R&B. Like, you gotta change your records. And I was just like, yeah, but you saw what this was.
You see your face just laughed. Oh my!
Because it threw me for a loop. We were doing, like, you can't tell. It's like working at the largest level and then saying, yeah, nah, everything you just, for 3 years I was dealing in this progressive space. Like we were doing music that was so progressive.
Let me tell you, like I
was like, what?
Like your feelings and emotion are palpable right now.
Yeah, I was confused, man. I was so sad. I was devastated. Because you have to understand, like
you're reliving it right now. I'm watching you.
I couldn't believe it. It was so good. And I was alone that whole process. I had no manager. I had no one. I was alone in that entire thing. I was going through that alone. No.
All right. So we're going to pause that there and resume the lawsuit. All right, so let me put myself back up here. All right. Child, I had to get some ice for my water. Because, baby, reading this for so long, it's like, good Lord. Who she used to date? What was the boy name that she used to date? It wasn't Willie. It was the other boy. in Day 26. What was the boy name she used to date in Day 26? I wonder how they doing. All right. So you said, did I eat? No. I mean, I ate something today. I didn't go eat right now. I had to go check on my child. I had to go get me some ice, and stuff. Q? What's his name, Q? You said, where am I getting ice from? My freezer. Girl, that's where the ice is at, in the freezer. All right, so let's continue. We on page, hold on, wait. We on page 23 of 55. It's a lot going on. All right. I just wanted my water to be cold, and then y'all know I like to eat ice too. Don hasn't worked with Diddy in over 15 years. The song y'all keep referencing is an old song from like 2010 that was never released. All right, let's get it. Let me post some more water up in here. And then let's get it. She dated Q. Oh, damn, y'all funny. You said, is it crushed ice? Yeah. But I don't have a crushed ice maker. So what I do, and that's what took me so long, is I crush my own ice. So I take my like it's made to like tenderize meat, but I put like my ice in like a Ziploc bag, and then I like bang it. I bang it and crush it myself. You know, I tried to get one of those machines that crush the ice for you, and I have it, but it crushes it like way too fine to where it's like too crushed to where it's like slushy like, and I don't like it that crushed. I like chunks of it, but smaller chunks. So I be crushing my own ice, and then but anyway, y'all didn't ask me all that. So let's get to it. Yes, I love me some crushed ice too, like, man. But anyway, so let's get to it. So it says Mr. Combs and falsely imprisons Miss Richards. So let's go here. Let's see. Oh, let me bring this down so that when okay, so this is the very top. All right. It worked, child. You said thanks for the idea. I'm telling you, for free 99, you put your ice in a Ziploc bag, you get something to bang it up, and you got your own crushed ice. But they sell machines on Amazon that basically crush, like, it crushed the ice for you, but again, it make it too fine for me. I don't like it that crushed. But anyway, let's get to it. All right, so let's see. Okay, so in or around December 2010, Diddy Dirty Money was preparing for an upcoming performance on Saturday Night Live. As usual, rehearsals lasted for days without the opportunity to eat or rest. And the rehearsal schedule was unpredictable. After waiting all day for Mr. Combs to call or send a car, Miss Richard received a phone call from Mr. Combs demanding, "Where the F are you bees? You bees don't want this. Y'all don't deserve to have someone pick you up. Get a cab." Miss Richard and Miss Harper immediately took a taxi to Sir Studios in New York. Anxious because Mr. Combs sounded enraged, Upon their arrival at Sir Studios, Mr. Combs and Harve Pierre were waiting for them in the lobby. Mr. Combs screamed obscenities at them. "Where the F were you bees? You bees don't want to win. You don't want this. I'm so tired of y'all." Miss Richard noticed that people in the lobby were reacting to Mr. Combs' tirade. Embarrassed, Miss Richard asked Mr. Combs to stop swearing and calling them bees in front of everyone. Mr. Combs' facial expressions shifted as he stepped towards Miss Richard, raised his arm, and swung his fist towards her face. Believing that Mr. Combs was going to hit her, Miss Richard braced for the impact. Before Mr. Combs could strike her, Mr. Combs' bodyguard grabbed her, escorted her out of the studio, and forced her into the Bad Boy Records Bentley that was parked outside. Miss Harper ran after Miss Richard, and Mr. Combs' bodyguard closed and locked the Bentley doors with both women inside. If a Bentley door is it's a meat mallet. It's a flat side and then it's a rigid side. I don't use the rigid side, I use the flat side. But anyways, so inside a Bentley, maybe the child safety lock on all doors? How they didn't get out? How they couldn't get out? Anyway, crazy. So, let's see. It says they was locked inside a Bentley. Okay, so inside the vehicle, Miss Richard realized there were no interior door handles. I guess I should have kept reading. Inside the vehicle, Miss Richard realized there were no interior door handles and that they were locked inside with no way to escape. Miss Richard's belongings were in the studio, but she was able to call her father from Miss Harper's cell phone. Miss Richard relayed to her father what had happened and that she needed help and feared that she would go missing. Moments later, Mr. Combs' bodyguard removed only Miss Harper from the Bentley, leaving Miss Richard locked inside the car alone for 2 hours. Miss Richard screamed as loudly as she could, but no one responded. It was late evening in the wintertime. The windows were heavily tinted, and the interior of the car was dark except for faint interior lights. Miss Richards' belongings and winter coat were in the studio while the ignition was off and there was no heat. Mr. Combs' prior threats and violence running through her mind, Miss Richard felt sheer panic, terror, and feelings of claustrophobia at being locked in a small, dark, enclosed space with no way to communicate or call for help. She began to feel cold and feared for her life, not knowing when or if she would be released. Miss Richards' father drove to New York from Baltimore and arrived at the studio approximately 2 hours later. Only after her father arrived and demanded to see her did Mr. Pierre order Mr. Combs' bodyguard to release Miss Richard from the vehicle. Mr. Pierre ushered Miss Richards' father between several rooms at Sir Studios, where he waited for approximately 2 hours before being able to confront Mr. Combs. Once Miss Richards' father expressed that he intended to contact the police, Mr. Combs warned him to think about your family and think about your daughter's career. Her father appeared visibly frightened by Mr. Combs' threats and actions, which in turn made Miss Richard feel terrified for herself and her family's safety. The next night, Diddy Dirty Money performed on SNL. What? The next night, what? Girl, I know you lying. The next night. That's nuts. You called your daddy? Your daddy came to rescue you? Then he bowed down? And then I just don't want a career that bad. Like, that's nuts. Anyways, so it says the next night Diddy Dirty Money performed on SNL. Mr. Combs subsequently called Miss Richard, complimented her performance, and concluded with a threat. You don't call your dad unless you're in the hospital. He called her phone and said, you don't call your dad unless you in the hospital. Whew. That's crazy. Page number 5. So this is about unjust enrichment of defendants by breach of contract and or copyright infringement. As a member of Danity Kane, Miss Richard has performed on over 15 songs and holds composition credits for more than 3 songs. Defendants have failed to account to or pay Miss Richard as agreed for her compositions and her performances and have breached contracts and infringed her copyrights, all of which has unjustly enriched defendants. As a member of Diddy Dirty Money, Miss Richard has performances recorded on over 9 songs. Additionally, Miss Richard has composition rights and credits on more than 5 songs. Defendants have failed to account to pay Miss Richard as agreed for her compositions. And I guess this says, this is the different songs. It says, and breached contracts and or infringed her copyrights unjustly, enriching defendants. In 2020, Mr. Combs selected Miss Richard for a reboot of Making the Band, and Miss Richard spent hours preparing to be a judge on the new show. However, the COVID-19 pandemic halted those plans, and Miss Richard was never compensated in any way. On or about July 1st, 2021, Mr. Combs' Bad Boy Records directed Janice Combs Publishing Inc. to assign its administration rights of Miss Richard's songs. Okay, so this is the songs and I guess her credits and all that. It says, held from her tenure with defendants in the years of 2005 to 2012 to Sony Songs, a division of Sony Music Publishing LLC. The assignment signed by Miss Richard on October 22nd, 2024 purported... Wait, what? We ain't got to October 2024 yet. We in September. What? I guess that's a typo. That's a typo. Let's yeah, I guess that's a typo. I don't know what they mean by that because we haven't made it to October yet. All right, so it says the assignment signed by Miss Richard on October 22nd, 2024 purported to credit through a semi-annual accounting. Miss Richard royalty account for Miss Richard's compositions between 80 to 90% of publishing share. However, no statements were ever provided, no payments were ever made, and no reversions nor assignment were ever recorded with performing rights organizations or other royalty collecting entities by defendants or by Sony. Defendants have wholly failed to account to or pay Miss Richard as agreed for her compositions and her performances in breach of the assignment and have thereby infringed her copyrights, resulting in defendants being unjustly enriched. During the summer of 2023, Mr. Combs' new record company, Love Record, Inc., tendered a contract for negotiation to Miss Richard for the song entitled Deliver Me, embodied as track number 3 on the Love album. It says, Off the Grid, officially released on September 15, 2023. Upon information and belief, Deliver Me sold well prior to Mr. Combs' legal troubles in November 2023. Continuing to present Miss Richards sought to establish her rightful percentage as 21% composer on Deliver Me. Mr. Combs personally called Miss Richard and left a voicemail complaining about her fair request. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs directed his attorneys to avoid confirming the composition percentages on the song and, in fact, list composers who played no part in composing the song. As a result, the contract was never signed by either Miss Richard or Love Records, Inc. Nevertheless, Miss Richards obtained a copyright registration certificate on a timely basis. Said registration lists authors, claimants as agreed when the song was created in 2009. The registration is filed separately in court and supports Miss Richards' claim of copyright infringement by defendants herein. Defendants Love Records, Inc. and Mr. Combs infringed Miss Richards' copyrights in the composition of Deliver Me by releasing Deliver Me without Miss Richards' permission and without compensation. Now we're going to talk about the damages. So it says, as a result of the acts and conduct complained of herein, Miss Richard has suffered and will continue to suffer the loss of income, wages, benefits, royalties, promotional fees, touring fees, and other compensations. Miss Richard has also suffered, among other things, future losses, emotional pain, suffering, inconvenience, loss, and enjoyment of life. Post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorder, insomnia, panic attacks, and other pecuniary losses, entitling her to an award, compensatory and punitive damages, injunctive and and relief, attorney's fees and costs, and other remedies as the court may deem appropriate. Plaintiff repeats and realleges each and every allegation in all of the preceding paragraphs as if fully set forth herein. The above described conduct of Mr. Combs, including but not limited to Mr. Combs' physical and hanky-panky and unlawful imprisonment of the plaintiff in New York City constitutes crime of violence against the plaintiff, as is a crime of violence motivated by gender, as defined in something New York, whatever term crime violence means. Blah, 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 blah. All right, let's see what else. All right, it says defendants Harv Pierre, Interscope Records, and Bad Boy Records have financially and otherwise benefited from these acts and omissions by keeping Mr. Combs, the volatile and explosive owner of Bad Boy Records, satisfied and benefited from facilitating his behavior. Defendants Harv Pierre, Interscope Records, and Bad Boy Records enabled, condone, had knowledge of, and failed to act to prevent or mitigate Mr. Combs' commission of the above mentioned crimes of violence motivated by gender. Blah, blah, blah. As a direct and proximate result of the above-mentioned crimes of violence and gender-motivated violence, plaintiffs sustained and will continue to sustain monetary damages and or economic harm, physical injury and pain and suffering, and serious psychological and emotional distress, entitling her to an award of compensatory and punitive damages and relief, attorney fees and costs, and other remedies as this court may deem appropriate, set forth, blah, blah. Let's see. Plaintiff repeats and realleges. Okay. All right. This saying that she's just realleging these claims. All right. So now it says the fourth cause of action. Now we about to get into some trafficking or whatever. I don't know. I'm going to read a little bit more and then we're going to be done. I'm getting tired of reading this. It's a lot. It is a lot. Okay. It's 55 pages and we on page 31. And I've been up since super early in the morning and my mind is kind of shutting down. You know how you start to get tired and your brain just start to shut down? Like, that's how I feel. I'm going to read a little more, but what y'all think so far? Let me pause and let me pull up my StreamYard. How many people are on here? Let me see. Let me see how many people are rocking with your girl real quick. To see, do any of y'all want to call in and hit the link and tell me what you think so far, or y'all just want me to keep going? Let me know. Let me know if y'all want me to open up the stream. Let me know if y'all want me to open up the StreamYard link. Or nah. Anybody? Going once, going twice? Let me know. I'm about to start munching on this ice in a minute. It's nice and good right now. Y'all let me know. She said keep going. She ain't trying to call in. Y'all said, girl, keep going. We ain't trying to call in. I'm trying to take a break from reading because, baby, it's a lot. It's a lot. Or who want to come up and read it? Who want to come up and read it while I scroll? Any volunteers? Any volunteers to finish reading the document? Y'all let me know. Any volunteers? Or y'all ain't trying to volunteer? No volunteers? Nothing? All right. Whatever. All right. I'll keep going in a second. Hold on. Just give me a sec. Yes. Can you read some for me? Please. I'll send you the link to the document. Okay, cool. All right. Write me on IG right now. And I'm gonna send you the link to the document. And then either one of y'all, I'll send y'all the link to the PDF. And then as y'all reading, I will scroll through. Deal? All right, deal. Thank you. All right, let me go to stream. Oh, let me copy this link right here. All right. Let me go to IG. Who else wants to read it while and I'll give you the link to StreamYard. I'll give you the link to this. You probably gotta do it on your laptop. I think you might have to do it on your laptop to be able to pull up the document and read it. I'm not sure. But let me see. Let me look you up. I know your Instagram is the same. Okay, I found you. All right, so this is the document right here, and then let me get you the StreamYard link. Thank y'all, because baby, it's a lot going on, but you know, I get tired. Hold on. When I go into StreamYard, it always mess up my camera. Let me take it down real quick. I mean, you could read it from my screen. I mean, you can. You could read it from my screen. It just seemed like sometimes it's hard to see doing that. But I mean, you might be able to read it from my screen. It just seemed like it would have been, you could make it bigger on your phone. That's the only reason why I said that. Let me see. Who else said they wanted to read it? I'll send you the link. Who this is? Oh. In the meantime, in between time. Let's see. Yeah, if you open up the link yourself and then read it, it'll probably be easier. Did you get the link? Did you get the link? Who else wanted the link? I don't see no more requests. Who else wanted it? Let's see. Y'all let me know when y'all click on. I'll keep going in the meantime. But once you get on, type it in the chat or something. But I don't want to delay the people waiting on y'all because y'all ain't moving fast enough. Oh, let me check my request again. Okay, y'all not moving fast enough. All right, let me just finish reading it. All right. So, what's up, girl? All right. Shakir said LOL, but for real, they moving slow. And they not typing to let me know, like, are you coming? What's going on? Like, what's happening? All right. All right, let's get to it. All right. So the fourth cause of action, it says the following. It says plaintiff repeats and realleges each and every allegation in all the preceding paragraphs, and if fully set forth herein, plaintiff is a victim of labor trafficking within the meaning of NY Penal Law 135.35 and is therefore entitled to bring civil action under whatever code, whatever. It says the defendant's acts and omissions taken separately and or together as outlined above constitute a violation of whatever penal code that is. It says defendant Sean Combs perpetrated labor trafficking of Miss Richard by inducing her to engage or continue to engage in labor activity by means of instilling a fear in her that she refused to comply. He would cause physical injury, serious physical injury, or engage in other conduct constituting a felony or unlawful imprisonment in the second degree in violation of New York penal law, whatever. And defendant Bad Boy Records benefited from Mr. Combs' venture by holding Miss Richard and artists signed with defendant Bad Boy Records and otherwise employed by other defendants, though corporations, captive to Mr. Combs' demands and desires. At all relevant times, defendant Bad Boy Records participated in and facilitated the obtainment of plaintiff's labor induced by force, fraud, and coercion. As a direct and proximate result of defendant's actions, the plaintiff has sustained and will continue to sustain monetary damages and or economic harm, physical injury, pain and suffering, and serious psychological and emotional distress. Defendant's continuous death threats and coercion prevented the plaintiff from asserting her rights within the statutorily prescribed period. Defendant should be stopped from asserting the statute of limitations as a defense due to the duress exerted upon the plaintiff. It says the fifth cause of action is hanky-panky traffic. She said hanky-panky trafficking. It's crazy. Hey, girl, you there?
Yeah, hey, yeah, I'm here.
Okay, do you have it pulled up?
Yeah, I just don't know exactly where you are on here.
Okay, so I'm on page 32, the last paragraph 137.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I see that. Okay. Plaintiff repeats and realleges each and every allegation in all of the preceding paragraphs as if fully and set forth herein. Mr. Combs, one of the most prominent musical artists and producers in industry, recruited and enticed plaintiff by initiating a professional relationship with her and inviting her to join his band, Diddy Dirty Money, as a singer, songwriter, and performer. This opportunity instilled in plaintiffs the hope and expectation of advancing her career and achieving greater success in the music industry. Mr. Combs, though through a pattern of coercive threats and displays of brutal violence, caused plaintiff to engage in commercial
Panky.
as defined by 18 USC, you know that. These acts were carried out to force Mr. Combs' financial gain from Mrs. Richards' participation in Diddy Dirty Money, to exert control over her, and to satisfy his own gratification. Mr. Combs used fraud and force to coerce and entice Miss Richards into commercial acts. Mr. Combs did so by making threats of career derailment and promises of career advancement in exchange for Miss Richards' acquiescence to Mr. Combs' batteries and Mr. Combs acted with knowledge or in reckless disregard for the fact that plaintiff was forced to engage in these acts through coercion, and that these were acts in exchange for her continued place in the band and her financial stability. Defendant Bad Boy Records has financially and otherwise benefited from those acts and omissions by keeping Mr. Combs, the volatile and explosive owner of Bad Boy Records, satisfied and benefit from facilitating his behavior. As a direct and proximate result of defendant's actions, plaintiff has sustained and will continue to sustain monetary damages and or economic harm, physical injury, pain, and suffering, and serious psychological and emotional distress. Defendant's continuous death threats and coercion prevented plaintiff from asserting her rights within the statutorily prescribed period. Defendant should be stopped from asserting the statute of limitations as a defense due to the duress exerted upon plaintiff. Sixth cause of action, violation of the California Victims Protection Act. Plaintiff repeats and realleges each and every allegation contained in all of the preceding paragraphs as if fully set forth herein. Plaintiff is a victim of trafficking within the meaning of California Code and is therefore entitled to bring a civil action under California Civil Code 52.5. The defendant's act and omissions taken separately and or together as outlined above constitute a violation of California Civil Code 52.5, specifically defendant Sean Combs of Ms. Richards by depriving or violating her personal liberty with the intent to obtain forced labor, and defendant Bad Boys Records benefited from Mr. Combs' venture by holding Ms. Richards, an artist signed by defendant Bad Boy Records and otherwise employed by other defendant Doe corporations, captive to Mr. Combs' demands and desires. At all relevant times, defendants participated in and facilitated to the obtainment of plaintiff's labor induced by force, fraud, or coercion. Defendant Bad Boy Records has financially and otherwise benefited from those acts and omissions by keeping Mr. Combs, the volatile and explosive owner of Bad Boy Records, satisfied and benefited from facilitating his behavior. As a direct proximate result of defendants' actions, plaintiffs have sustained and will continue to sustain monetary damages and or economic harm, physical injury, pain and suffering, and serious psychological and emotional distress. Pursuant to California Code 52.5, defendants' continuous threats and coercion induced plaintiff to delay the filing of this action and asserting her rights within a statutorily prescribed period. Defendant should be stopped from asserting the statute of limitations as a defense due to distress asserted upon plaintiff. Pursuant to California Code 52.5, the suspension of the statute of limitations due to the estoppel applies to all other related claims arising out of the situation, including but not limited to violation of the Victims of Gender Motivated Act, NYC Admin Code, forced labor in violation of the New York Series of Victims of and under assault under New York law, battery under New York law, false imprisonment under New York law, false imprisonment under California law, intentional infliction of emotional distress, harassment, gender discrimination, and hostile work environment under New York State human rights laws, New York Executive Law 290 Esquire. Harassment, gender discrimination, and hostile work environment under New York City human rights, New York Esquire laws, retaliation and violation of New York State human rights laws, Section 296, and California Government Code, hostile work environment in violation of California Government Code, gender discrimination in violation of California Government Code, and violation of publicity under New York Civil Rights Act, under enrichment, copyright infringement, breach of contract, breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing, fraud, intentional misrepresentation, false promise. Pursuant to California Civil Code 52.5, the running of the statute of limitations may be suspended as plaintiff could not have reasonably discovered the cause of action due to circumstances resulting from the including psychological trauma. Seventh cause of action, blank under New York law against defense, Sean Combs and Bad Boy Records. Plaintiff repeats and realleges each and every allegation in all of the preceding paragraphs as if fully and set forth herein. In engaging in the conduct described above, Mr. Combs committed and blank against plaintiff because he intentionally placed plaintiff in a reasonable apprehension of imminent danger, harmful or offensive contact, and plaintiff reasonably feared imminent bodily harm as a result of defendant's conduct. Defendant's actions amount to violations under New York Penal Code as well as Alinka's California law and the common law of New York and California. Defendant Bad Boy Records has financially and otherwise benefited from those acts and omissions by keeping Mr. Combs, the volatile and explosive owner of Bad Boy Records, satisfied and benefited from facilitating his behavior. As a direct and proximate result of defendant's actions, plaintiff sustained and will continue to sustain monetary damages and or economic harm, physical injury, pain and suffering, and serious psychological and emotional distress. The conduct of Mr. Combs described above as willful, wanton, and malicious. At all relevant times, Mr. Combs acted with conscious disregard of plaintiff's rights and feelings, acted with the knowledge of or with reckless disregard for the fact that his conduct was certain to cause injury and or humiliation to plaintiff and intended to cause fear, physical injury, and or pain and suffering to plaintiff by virtue of foregoing. Plaintiff is entitled to recover punitive and exemplary damages from defendant Combs according to proof at trial. Defendant's continuous blank threats and coercion prevented plaintiff from asserting her rights within the statutorily prescribed period. Defendant should be stopped from asserting the statute of limitations as a defense due to duress exerted upon plaintiff. I gotta get a drink now. I see what you mean, Nick. Let me take a little drink.
Nah, for real. Like, after you get to reading so much of it, you like, good Lord.
Okay.
But I'll let you just read a little bit more and then we could end it. I mean, I feel like people got the main meat and potatoes of it.
This is deep.
Yeah. So just tell me when you get tired. We'll just read a little bit more because we're not going through all 55 pages. We on 36
right.
now. It's just...
But yeah, I knew... I said, let me help my girl Nick out. Whenever she says she want help, I go up and help.
Thank you. I appreciate it because I was like, whoo, child, I'm tired. But go ahead and read, like maybe 1 to 2 more pages and then we'll wrap.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. 8th cause of action, blank battery under New York law against defendant Sean Combs and Bad Boy Records. Plaintiff repeats and realleges each and every allegation in all of the preceding paragraphs as if fully set forth herein. In engaging in the conduct described above, Mr. Combs committed a battery against plaintiff because he intentionally engaged in unlawful, intentional, and offensive touching or application of force to plaintiff's person. Mr. Combs repeatedly and without consent touched Ms. Richards' body, including her cheeks and her chest area. Defendant's actions amount to violations under New York law and as well as analogous California law and the common law of New York and California. Defendant Bad Boys Records has financially and otherwise benefited from these acts and omissions by keeping Mr. Combs, the volatile and explosive owner of Bad Boys Records, satisfied and benefited from facilitating his behavior. As a direct and proximate result of defendant's actions, plaintiff has sustained and will continue to sustain monetary damages and or economic harm, potential injury, pain and suffering, and serious psychological and emotional distress. The above described conduct by Mr. Combs was willful, wanton, and malicious. At all relevant times, Mr. Combs acted with conscious disregard of Ms. Richards' rights and feelings, acted with knowledge of or with reckless disregard for the fact that his conduct was certain to cause injury and or humiliation to Ms. Richards and intended to cause fear, physical injury, and or pain and suffering to Ms. Richards by virtue of the foregoing. Ms. Richards is entitled to recover punitive and exemplary damages from Mr. Combs according to proof at trial. Defendant's continuous blank threats and coercion prevented plaintiff from asserting her rights within the statutorily provided period. Defendant should be stopped from asserting the statute of limitations of defense due to the duress exerted upon plaintiff. Yeah, I think we get the gist of it. It's all pretty much just a reiteration of all of these. So yeah, I think we should call it unique.
All right, we'll call it there. Thank you.
You're welcome, honey.
All right. So y'all heard all of these allegations that she has put forth in this document, this lawsuit. And she went way deeper with allegations than Cassie did. Now, I'm not sure if you guys have been watching the news or if you guys have been paying attention, but there was recently a $100 million default judgment in a separate case from somebody who's currently incarcerated who filed suit against Diddy. And Diddy did not respond to it. And he in turn got a $100 million default judgment awarded against him in that suit. Now, I think that whatever he paid Cassie, he needs to pay Don triple, because not only did she witness these things and all of this, but like he didn't give her money. He didn't give her proper credits. She didn't get paid for many of these things, and she went through all of that for what? At this point in time, she's not even considered an A-list celebrity. She doesn't really have any, I guess, motion for real right now. And she went through all of this and she had an empty bank account throughout. So it's like, at the end of the day, you really got to pick your battles and you got to realize what's worth it and what's not. Because this, crazy. Totally crazy. I wish her all the best. It sucks and it's sad that any of them had to go through anything like this. And I understand the fear of having a boss and feeling like, okay, this person can harm me. This person can get me disappeared. This person can shelve my career. And at this point, maybe that's what happened. Maybe her career did get shelved. Maybe the reason why we don't see her with motion and see her outside and see her as an A-list celebrity is maybe because she was shelved. I don't know, but thank you guys for rocking with me. Thank you, Sha, for coming on and helping me read the document. I appreciate you so much. And thank you for all of you guys who hit the like button and continue to support this channel. I appreciate you guys so much. Until